Former Ohio State coach and current Fox football analyst Urban Meyer has a warning for the four new teams entering the Big Ten. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get started. Don't miss that deal. All right, Urban's warning. Plus, Big Ten news all over the place. Some bad news for Rutgers athletic department. We have some recruiting and injury news. We're going to bounce around the league a little bit, plus our top 10 observations from the weekend. But first, just about every time former Ohio State coach Urban Meyer does an interview these days, he talks about the challenges of the new teams entering the Big Ten and the SEC as well. They're getting a couple of new teams as well. He's got great respect for the new teams coming into the Big Ten from the Pac-12 and Oregon and Washington and UCLA and USC. But his warning for them, watch out. He says Big Ten play is going to be different than what they're used to. Now, we talk about that from time to time, and those schools that are now Big Ten schools get a little offended by it for good reason, I might add. But that's kind of the MO, right? The Pac-12 teams were, high-flying, throw-in quarterback teams. The Big Ten's kind of grind it, punch you in the mouth, defensive teams. He has the same kind of warning for Texas and Oklahoma going into the SEC for the first time. And Urban should know, right? It's a pretty good source. He's coached in both conferences. He was in the SEC with Florida. He was in the Big Ten with Ohio State. Oh, by the way, he won a national championship at both places. So I would be inclined to take him at his word. Now, he wasn't being disrespectful to these schools or their former conference. Same thing with Texas and Oklahoma. He wasn't besmirching the Big 12. He said there's plenty of talent, high-flying talent and skill at all conferences, at all schools. He says the difference, though, will be the physical play in the trenches week in and week out. There won't be too many breaks from week to week. There'll be a higher number of strong opponents week in and week out than they're used to. No weeks off, so to speak. Now, Meyer doubled down when he's talking about the Big Ten, especially at the top half of the league. He says they have better offensive linemen and better defensive linemen than he ever saw in the Pac-12, taking on Pac-12 teams. Regarding skill, position, especially quarterback, he's confident that the four schools from the West Coast will be just fine in that department. They all have a long history there. But he worries about the guys up front from the West Coast teams coming to the Big Ten and being able to protect those quarterbacks. Now, speaking in broad terms, Urban might be right overall. I mean, if you're going total big picture here, 30,000 feet view, I think his advice is actually good for all Big Ten teams, not the four newcomers from the West Coast. I've said as much here that, these teams need to come in here and be ready to play some smash mouth football. Defense wins in this league, for example. I've said that. But let's parse Urban Meyer's comments just a little bit because they don't necessarily all add up. These four new West Coast teams, Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA, they're bringing something to the table here. That's why they're coming to the Big Ten. In some aspects, they're a lot tougher than I think Urban thinks they are. So let's review this just a little bit. For example, just spitballing here, let's start with the Washington Huskies. Granted, I think they're the biggest mystery team in the Big Ten this year. I don't know what to think about this team this year. They got to the national championship game last season, but they have a new coach, and they're replacing 20 of the 22 starters. All right? Nothing new there. That's what we're going to deal with this year. But do you know who had the best offensive line in all of college football last year? Bingo. the Washington Huskies. They did. They got the Joe Moore Award for the most outstanding offensive line unit in college football last year. That's why Michael Penix Jr. had so much time to throw the ball with those deep touch passes downfield. They had a pretty good running game, too. I mean, they were really slinging it. They were a passing team, don't get me wrong. But he had time. He had time to throw. By the way, Michigan won the Joe Moore Award the previous 2 years, 2022, 2021, just to give you some Big Ten perspective. Let's look at the Oregon Ducks. Honestly, I think their offensive line has a pretty good chance of winning the Joe Moore Award this year. I think they're pretty good. And defensively, you want to talk about down in the trenches, just their front 7 guys, their 4 linemen and their 7 linebacker. They got 11 blue chip players on the roster in those 7 positions. I mean, even their backups are good. You know, I don't think a lot of people out east noticed that Oregon actually had a top 9 defense last year as well. So they're going to come. Dan Lanning's team can play in the trenches. They're built for Big Ten football. They're built for just about anything. Now, USC might have a little trouble here. I'm not sure about their O-line. Defensively, Lincoln Riley, his teams are not known for playing in the trenches. But they did steal UCLA defensive coordinator D'Anton Lynn. It's a major step in the right direction, trying to shore that up. They realize, part of the problem of fixing a problem is knowing you have a problem, being able to admit you have a problem. Fired his longtime friend and defensive coordinator that came with him from Oklahoma, made the big change. So they realized they have to get better there. So D'Anton Lynn will go a long way there for them. Now, since he left UCLA, it remains to be seen how UCLA battles in the trenches, but there was a reason USC stole their defensive coordinator. The Bruins defense was one of the best turnaround stories in college football last year. It really was. All right, now, just for fun. This is always just for fun, by the way. That's why we do it every day. Let's take a look and mark our calendars a little bit for some of the first big tests in the trenches for our brand new West Coast schools that we're proud to have in the Big Ten now. All right. Now, assuming Oregon gets by its rival week in week 3, they got a game against a very upset Oregon State team and or crowd fan base. Look, Oregon's the better team here, but that's a tough place to play. That's a tough crowd. They're mad. They got left behind. Everything's ruined. They didn't get to, they're still in the Pac-2 or whatever we're calling it. They want that game. They want that game. Probably not going to get Oregon will probably win that game, but they get behind that. Really, I think Oregon can go somewhat untested. I say this respectfully until that October 12th game against Ohio State when the Buckeyes come to town at Autzen Stadium. Now that'll be a punch in the mouth both ways for that game. The Washington Huskies, they have a 3-week stretch that will tell you everything you need to know about them. They got at Rutgers, they're hosting Michigan, and they're at Iowa. That will tell you if they can play that kind of football. They also have another stretch on the back part of the schedule. They got USC, Penn State, UCLA, and Oregon to close it out. Those are the last 4. Are you kidding me? Wow. That's pretty tough. USC is going to get punched in the mouth with this schedule. A lot. The question is, will they be able to punch back? We can't wait for their opener against LSU. That'll be cool. Take the over in that one. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of people punching anybody in the mouth in that one. Not going to be a lot of defense in that game, but Trojans defense will be tested. There'll be plenty of film, plenty of things to work on from that one. Michigan, Penn State, Rutgers, and Nebraska will all put up feisty battles before the season finale for the USC Trojans against Notre Dame. There's going to be that. That's what Urban Meyer's talking about right there. Week in and week out for the USC Trojans with that schedule. And we'll see what UCLA is made of in the middle of the season. They have LSU, Oregon, Penn State, Rutgers, Nebraska, and Iowa all on the schedule. So we'll find out. We'll find out. The test will be the games themselves, and we're looking forward to it. And again, we welcome these teams in. It's going to be adjustment for everybody. They're going to want to come in and throw the ball a little bit, and the Big Ten's going to want to play some defense against these guys. So we'll see how it shakes out. We can't wait. Welcome. If you're new to us, by the way, if you're an Oregon Duck fan or a Washington Husky fan, USC Trojan, UCLA Bruin fan, and you're just discovering Lockdown Big Ten, thank you. Be sure to subscribe. Just hit the subscribe button. It's free. No personal information required. And then you and I, we're in the Big Ten journey together each and every day. So subscribe. And we're also asking everybody to share. Share, no matter how you get the podcast. If you're only audio only or video, whatever you use to check us out all the time, hit the share button too and share it with a friend. I know you know a Big Ten family member or friend who's a fan of this conference. Let them know we're out here. Spread the word if you don't mind. That really helps us out. But if you subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast, that way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Don't forget to pick up some school gear and also check out prior podcasts if you're just checking out for the first time. We have a website where we archive everything. TalkBig10 10.com. TalkBig10.com. All right, so we got some changes coming fast and furious at Rutgers. This is what they planned on, but this is what is happening. We'll tell you about that. Plus, QB1 decided at Wisconsin for now. That's what I'm saying. And which Big Ten school is leading the country in the recruiting class of 2026? Be surprised, maybe not. We'll have that for you. It's all coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. FanDuel. This is great. You've heard us talk about FanDuel all the time. It makes all the games even more exciting. They are, after all, America's #1 sports book. Well, we got something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game, and all you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. But why would you? Because this is awesome. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Got some baseball for you here on a Monday night. Diamondbacks over the Marlins, O's over the Mets, Royals over the Angels, and the Rays over the A's, and finally the Dodgers over the Mariners. Pick any one of those three and parlay them. You'll thank me later. Check it out. FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Well, thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day. We always appreciate you, every one of you, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, share no matter where you get us, and follow and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And then check out our website, Talk Big 10. That's the number 10. Don't spell it out. TalkBig10.com. We archive everything. Go back and find all your podcasts we did on your favorite school. Buy school merchandise there as well, TalkBig10.com. And when you're done with us, how about a second listen and enjoy Locked On College Football? They have a podcast. Spencer McLaughlin does it each and every day. Get you ready for the season, stuff on and off the field with college football. There's always something to talk about there. And Locked On College Football is available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Some tough news here for Rutgers, because it feels like that athletic department's got some momentum right now. Right? 64-year-old athletic director Pat Hobbs resigned suddenly on Friday. He was the longest active tenure athletic director in the Big Ten after 9 years. And he'll be replaced on an interim part by Ryan Pisari. He's going to step in. But they'll do a search for a more permanent replacement. That'll begin as soon as possible. In Hobbs' resignation letter, he mentioned his health and cardiac team. He's 64 years old. He's done a good job hiring coaches there. Greg Schiano just led the football team to its first winning season since 2014. Scarlet Knights opened the football season Thursday, August 29th by hosting Howard. This is not the best time to lose an athletic director, but he did a good job. He's got to step down for health. Meanwhile, now that Ryan Day has picked transfer quarterback Will Howard to lead the Buckeyes this year as a starting quarterback, at least to start the season. What about his backup, Devin Brown? Day said that this time last year, Brown was going to be the starter. But then Kyle McCord, the last few days of practice, looked a little better. And then by week 2, after 2 games, they had made up their mind it was going to be Kyle McCord edging him out. Now, he got beat out by for the QB1 job 2 years in a row now with 2 different quarterbacks. How would that make you feel? That'd probably bum you out a little bit. And by the way, like we told you last week, with Howard being the starter, the number 2 spot is not shored up yet. It won't necessarily be Brown because 5-star freshman Julian Sayin is up and coming, and they don't want to risk him flying out of there in the transfer portal. So I don't know. Day says that Brown could do everything that is asked of him on the football field. He just has to be more consistent and take care of the football. Says if he can do that, Day says he can play and contribute at Ohio State. Look, it's a long season. Injuries happen. Things happen. So, I mean, he's not going to go anywhere now, but looking into next year, it'll be his senior year. He's going to want to play. And again, with Julian Sayin barking up behind him, I don't know. I bet you he'll go somewhere else. That's just me. I don't know that. I don't have any insider information. It's just human nature. Hey, watch out for a bunch of Big Ten quarterbacks. Literally watch out for them. They're on the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award watch list. They put together a watch list going into the season, then give out the award at the end of the season. Goes to the best senior or upperclassman quarterback in college football. There's over 60 guys on this list, but it's full of Big Ten quarterbacks. I think 13 of the 18 starting quarterbacks in the conference are on this list. Penn State's Drew Aller is on the list. He needs a big year. Luke Altmaier out of Illinois. I think he's going to be pretty impressive this year. UCLA quarterback Ethan Garbers. We talked about him last week. Minnesota Max Brosmer is in, stepping it up to Power 4 football. We'll see how he does at Minnesota this year. Purdue's Hudson Card wants to do a little better than he did last year. Maryland's Billy Edwards Jr. He's got big shoes to fill. And for Talia Tagovailoa, the all-time leading passer in the Big Ten, by the way, at Maryland. And also Oregon's Dylan Gabriel. Obviously, he's not only on this list, he's going to probably be on some Heisman short list moving forward, as will Howard, Ohio State. He's on the list. Rutgers' Ethan Kaliakmanis, who you remember transferred from Minnesota to go to Rutgers. He's on the list. Iowa's Cade McNamara, the former Michigan transfer, but then has had all sorts of injury problems. If he can stay healthy, maybe he'll be on the list. Iowa's going to win some games this year. Will Rogers at Washington. Curtis Rourke, the Ohio transfer in at Indiana, and Tyler Van Dyke, who transferred from Miami to Wisconsin. He is on the list as well. By the way, Luke Fickell just named Miami transfer Tyler Van Dyke the starter over Braden Locke at Wisconsin. People I hear, people I listen to, they say that Tyler Van Dyke is the better quarterback. He does have a stronger arm. Braden Locke played pretty well last year in coming in for Tanner Mordecai when he got hurt. Looked pretty good in the spring to me while Van Dyke was kind of learning the offense a little bit. Here's the deal. I see Van Dyke down here in Miami. I'm in South Florida. Very inconsistent. He'll look like a Heisman dude one day, and then he'll throw 3 interceptions the next. He's got to even that out. I do like Braden Locke. We'll see if he comes in at some point during the season. Interesting comments from 5-star quarterback Julian Lewis. You know, he had verbally committed to Southern Cal a while back for the class of 2025. But he's continued to visit other schools, and it's an eclectic bunch of schools. Talking with Coach Prime at Colorado. He loves Kurt Cignetti's staff at Indiana. But then he came out and said, hey, man, I'm still locked into Southern Cal. But he left the door open, and he's been visiting the other schools. He's from California, if that helps him make up his mind at all. So, by the way, he threw 3 touchdown passes in his season opener for his high school this past season. 99 touchdowns for his career so far. We've talked a lot about recruiting class 25 and 2025, and the Buckeyes are ranked number 1 in college football with their class, despite a few big losses here in the month of August that they did not get. Now, believe it or not, there are rankings already for the 2026 class. And the Oregon Ducks are at the top of that list, right now. By the way, the Ducks were ranked as 3rd last year, 2024. Doing well, 2025. Number 1, 2026. Got 4-star St. John Bosco, gave a verbal commitment from California recently. And the Ducks have 5 players on that 2026 list already, and that includes quarterback Jonas Williams from the state of Illinois. Now, We got some injury news we got to share with you. Nebraska's been hit by a couple of injuries here. Lost a big offensive lineman last week. Their linebacker, Javen Wright, he'll be out indefinitely. He's got a medical condition. He's had a lot of injuries since 2019. He's had blood clots, so he's got something going on. Rule did say that he expects the fifth-year player to be back at some point this season. That's good news. He's just not sure when at this point. And bad news for Illinois tight end Cole Rusk. He'll be out for the season. He's got a knee injury. He was expected to be the Fighting Illini's best option possibly at tight end this year after transferring in from Murray State, where he was the FCS third-team All-American, made the third-team All-American for FCS. And last year had 39 catches, 507 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So he's going to be out. Luke Altmaier has one less weapon to throw to. So that's sad there. All right, coming up, we are going to take a look at, as we do every Monday, we put together a top 10, Big Ten top 10 observations from the weekend. See if my list matches yours. That's all coming up next right here on Locked On Big Ten. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it is easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, we want to get into our top 10 observations from the weekend here. This isn't all good stuff. It's just stuff that grabbed my attention here this week. I'm going to put it on the screen. If you are audio only, I'll explain it to you in detail. So let's see what we have here. All right, I'm going to start it off. I put on there Urban Meyer's comments that I came across over the weekend. Again, his warning to both Big Ten and SEC newcomers. Going to be a different style of football moving forward. And we based the top of our podcast on that, and some interesting thoughts both ways on that. At number 9, this is from earlier last week, not necessarily the weekend, the AP Top 25. Still very proud that 4 Big Ten teams are in the top 10, 6 in the top 25. Good job. And hopefully that pans out there for the rest of the season, and we get as many teams as possible into the 12-team expanded college football playoffs. Speaking of Big Ten, expansion talk. This isn't good or bad. We did a piece. In fact, go back on our website and check it out. TalkBig10, number10.com. I believe this was Friday's podcast. Expansion talk. We can cool it now, right? The August 15th deadline came and went for ACC schools to make their intentions known for the 2025 season. Nobody said they were leaving, so it's another year and a half before we're going to talk about it a lot. Well, who am I kidding? We're still going to talk about it when it's appropriate, but we can take a little breather on that right now. Tyler Van Dyke at number 7. We learned that he's going to be the starting quarterback in Wisconsin. I gave you my thoughts on that just a minute ago, so we'll see how he does. The big transfer out of Miami. At number 6, Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State. Every time I turn on the internet and read something, I read Jeremiah Smith this, Jeremiah Smith that. They love him at Ohio State. True freshman. Going to be taking some snaps and catching some touchdowns is what he's going to be doing. By the way, are you aware? If you're a Buckeye fan, you probably aren't. But if you're not a Buckeye fan, Jeremiah Smith, cousin with Geno Smith, quarterback at Seattle. At number 5, we got Will Howard, again, being named the starting quarterback at Ohio State over Devin Brown and company, with Julian Sayin coming up behind fast. We'll see if this is just naming him the starter at the beginning of the season. Will he be the starter at the end of the season? My gut feeling says he might. I don't know. My gut feeling says he might not be. Number 4, we just put in the Rutgers athletic director opening there. Again, Pat Hobbs, at the age of 64, suddenly stepping down on Friday on the eve of the a week and a half out from 2 weeks shy of the starting game for the season, opening game for the season. So that's tough for them. At number 3, I mentioned this last week, but so much so I wanted to put it on this list here. The leather helmets at Illinois. What am I talking about? Well, when they play Michigan, it'll be the 100th playing. It'll be an ode to 100 games ago when they beat Michigan because Red Grange, the legend, scored 6 touchdowns against the Wolverines. So they're going to hand paint all the Illinois helmets. If you haven't seen this somewhere, Google it, look it up. It's fascinating. I can't remember if we put it on Tuesday Tweets or not. I think we did. I think that's the last time I talked about it. You can go back and check it out on our last Tuesday podcast at talkbig10.com. So they're going to paint the helmets to make them look like they're leather helmets, straps and all that. It looks awesome. It's 3D look. It literally looks like they got, if you're out in the stands watching down, if you're on TV watching this, it's going to look like they have leather helmets on, even though they're regular helmets. It's a phenomenal job. So I should probably put this number 1. I'm so amazed with it. At number 2, I put Caitlin Clark. Remember her, Iowa fans? So ever since they came back from the Olympic break, All-Star break, WNBA, she's been on a tear. She's getting better and stronger and bigger every day. I mean, you compare how she's playing now to her first 5 to 8 games. She's got it figured out. She just set the all-time rookie assist mark, and they're just barely into the second half of the season. So every assist she gets moving forward, she's going to add on to that record. It's incredible. I think I mentioned this on our podcast a little while back. Going into the break for the Olympics, I believe she has had more assists than 75% of every player that's ever played in the WNBA. And that was halfway through her first year. It's ridiculous how good she is. All right. And now, like I said, these aren't good or bad, but my number 1 observation when I read this weekend, Connor Stallion's back in the news again. He's got a job. Yes, the former Michigan staffer / assistant in the middle of the Spygate scenario, scandal, whatever you want to call it. He has a job. He is now the defensive coordinator of Mumford High School in Detroit, Michigan. If Mumford High School sounds familiar to you, if you're old enough to remember Eddie Murphy and Beverly Hills Cop, the first movie, he's wearing a hoodie and underneath it, he's got a t-shirt. It's Mumford High School from Detroit. There you go. That's where Connor Stalions is, calling the defense. How about that? Love to get your thoughts on all of that. Many ways for you to reach out to me. You can hit us up on Twitter or X if you prefer, at TalkBig10, number 10. Also, comments on YouTube are always welcome, especially if you're going back and forth. I always love that. And also, don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. See the scroll on the bottom if you're on video, talkbig10.com, number 10. I got email there. And you can find all of our podcasts there archived. After you're done here, give another listen to another one from last week. Get caught up. Get yourself ready for the season. They're grouped by your favorite school if you want to get caught up for the season and previewing what's going on there. It's all right there at your fingertips, plus your favorite school's merchandise as well. So check it out. Again, that's at talkbig10, number 10.com. All right, we're getting closer. We're getting a lot closer to the start of the season. When you're done with us, by the way, check out our friends at Locked On College Football. They're out there every day as well. And Spencer McLaughlin is running that on and off the field, stuff going on and off the field. He's there each and every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We'll be back tomorrow. We're just warming up for this week. We got games this weekend, not Big Ten games, but games this weekend, maybe future Big Ten teams. But and then the week after that, we're playing football. So tell your friends about us. Thanks for checking us out. Talk to you tomorrow. Keep an eye and ear on everything for Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll talk to you next time.